Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a bookkeeper with American Bookkeeping Services. And yeah, today I thought we could talk about creating estimates in QuickBooks Online and how to convert estimates into invoices uh, using the Projects tab in QuickBooks, and also how to do things like change orders and yeah, something else that's called progress invoicing with QuickBooks. So yeah, let's get into it. So you'll see here we have our main page with QuickBooks. So one thing about the projects tab or the projects area in QuickBooks Online is that it is for some of the upper level QuickBooks plans. So if you have QuickBooks Plus or above, you will have the projects tab. I'll show you how to track projects if you don't have the Plus plan or above. So if you're on one of the lower plans in QuickBooks Online, I'll make a separate video because I think that could be useful. But for this video, we're going to be talking specifically about QuickBooks Plus. Okay, so we're in the QuickBooks main dashboard area. What we'll do is we can go over to everyone's tabs over here. It might look different, but just go through it and find, if you do have QuickBooks Plus or above, you should have this projects tab. So we're going to click on projects. And you'll see I created this yesterday, but we'll create another one. So we can click create a new project up in the right hand corner. My view might be blocking it. My picture might be blocking it, but it says new project up there. And we'll create a new test project 1, or actually we'll call this retaining wall, if I can spell. I did have coffee today, so I have no excuse. Retaining wall installation. Okay. And we'll create a new client. We'll click test company, or yeah, we'll just use test company for now. And we can also set a due date for our project. So feel free to set that as you like. And this is mostly just for you. So add retaining wall to test company property number 1. Okay, so yeah, you can set the description however you'd like, but yeah, we'll just keep it at this. Something else that's interesting is we can add tasks for particular projects here. So we can add task names. Just again, it's shared just with you and your team, not for clients, just to help you stay organized. So we'll create this project. We'll click save here. And then this screen will show up. And we can see this is the title that we set, retaining wall installation. We also have a way of tracking, if this will go away, tracking our estimates versus our actuals. And this is useful because it will allow us to track our income and our costs. So we'll see how that works in a second. We also have profit margin, so we'll be able to track our project profit margin. We can also see our open invoices for our project here and our overdue invoices once we create them. And here we have lots of useful tabs as well. So we can see info based on hourly costs or payroll expenses. So we have that breakdown. We can also see our project transactions when we set this up. When we start, we'll add an estimate in just a second, but I wanted to show you some of the tabs here because this can be very useful. So we can see our estimates, we can see our invoices, we can see expenses for this particular project, and we can also see bills. We can also, if you'd like, now it's entirely up to you, we can also do time tracking for the project directly through QuickBooks. We won't get into that today, but it is something that can be useful. And something else that we'll talk about later in this video is project reports. So we can see project profitability, we can see time cost by employee or vendor if we do set up the time tracking, unbilled time and expenses, and also a better breakdown of our estimates versus actuals. You can also see a change log once we add in our invoices and estimates here and any attachments. So yeah, we'll go ahead and create an estimate for this retaining wall. So it's important to note the difference between an estimate and an invoice. So estimates can also be known as quotes, right? So an estimate is a way to communicate with our clients how much we think a project will cost, right? To the best of our knowledge. And we want to try to make it as accurate as possible, make it fair to us so that we have a good profit margin, right? But an estimate is helpful for communicating the price to the clients and also for us in estimating how much we think it will cost. An invoice is more of a binding document. So an invoice could be for work that was already completed, or it could be for when we start the work. We can also create an invoice for them. And depending on if we bill for completed work or if we send them a bill and then start the work, depending on how you have your business set up, an invoice is more of a binding document. So just be aware of the difference between invoice and estimate. Okay, so we'll add an estimate. You can see in this projects tab here, in this particular project, we can also go back real quick. I'll just show you. We can, in the projects tab here, we have a list of our projects that we're currently working on. In the top here, we'll go back to our retaining wall project. So we can click on that and we can click on add to project up here. So you'll see we have a list of things that we can do. We can create an invoice, we can receive payment, we can create an expense, we can create a project estimate, we can add to time, we can create a bill or a purchase order. So we will create a project estimate and we'll walk through that with you guys just to show you how it works. So you'll see here we have test company, which is our client, and the project name, so retaining wall installation. You'll notice here it says pending. So this is because it's an estimate, but we can come in here later, we can edit it, and we can change it to accepted, closed, or rejected for any of those statuses for an estimate, right? So whatever our client, whenever they come back to us and say, oh yeah, it looks great, let's do it, or I think the price is too high, or whatever it may be, we can keep track of it that way. So we can also choose to send it later if we want. And we can set an expiration date for this estimate. So today is March 30th, and yeah, we can set an expiration date. So if we wanted to set it for, say, April 15th, for instance, or earlier, you can set it however you like. Make sure that the billing address is correct for your your client. So this should be for your client here. And then we can come down here and add different line items. So for the service date, this would be the date that you would start your service. So when we start the retaining wall, say we can start at April 15th. And then we can select our product or service. So you might have a more detailed list of products or services than I do currently, but that's up to you. You can also add more detailed descriptions. So we'll just add install retaining wall at test company property number 1 10 we'll add a little bit more detail, and we'll say 15-foot retaining wall at east end of test company property number 1. Okay, and we'll set the rate at $4,000. Say if you believe that that's what it costs. You can also set we can also say, if we wanted to break down for the client, the materials cost would be $1,300, and maybe we change this to labor for install. Okay, and maybe we set that at $2,500. So feel free to break it down however you'd like, whatever you would like to show your client that on this estimate, depending on your business, how you like to create your estimates, create your invoices. But yeah, materials cost for retaining. And again, make sure that you set your services correctly, and make sure that this doesn't change because it just did. So we'll set it at $1,300. Okay. So we can also make sure that you're setting up your sales tax correctly, and message displayed on estimate. So something that's useful that QuickBooks does is it allows you to convert estimates into invoices. So we'll do that in a minute. It got rid of this too. Okay, so message displayed on estimate. Thank you for your business. If you have questions, please feel free to contact 555-555-5555. Okay. Okay, and then we can also add this second part will show up on our invoice. We can edit it however we want. I'm just going to copy and paste this to here. And yeah, then we can also add attachments to our estimate. So if you wanted to, for instance, take a picture of maybe a hillside and make drawings on it to show how it will look, maybe a SketchUp or a mock-up, right? We can add that attachment there. So just make sure that your client's email address is correct here. I have it set at my email address, but we will, yeah, just so we can view it, so I can show you guys. But click Save and Send here. And then another thing that's important is QuickBooks lets you create templates. So make sure that your business name is correct here. I'm also a notary, so originally my QuickBooks was under my notary company. So just make sure that your business name is correct. Okay, once everything in this looks correct, how you want to send it to your client, we can click Send and Close. Now what we can do is we will take a look at the actual estimate that was sent to our client. Okay, so we have opened the email because I sent it to myself. So here's what it says: Dear test company, please find your estimate details here. And we can see that everything looks how we wanted it to look. So we have our test company here. We have the 2 line items that we added for labor and for materials. And it has the service date and the amount. So that's what it will look like for our client. Okay, so once we're back in QuickBooks, we can, in our specific project, note we're still in retaining wall installation here. So we can go to transactions, and now we'll see that this estimate appears in our transactions. So we can also, so once our client has accepted our estimate, we can come in here, click View Edit, and we can change this estimate to accepted by, and we can say client 1 and date today, March 30th. So this gives you better traceability to say, for communication with your client, say, I talked to the office manager with my client, their name was Jim, and he accepted it. Or however, I talked with the owner and they accepted it, right? So that there's no confusion later. So we can also, once our client has accepted our estimate, we can convert this into an invoice. So you'll see right here, create invoice. And this is a feature that is useful. You'll see that there's 3 possible selections here. Now, the middle one is with progress invoicing. So there is a way that you can actually set up progress invoicing if it's a large sum that we are going to invoice from our client. We can choose to have it split out if we want, right? So when we send this new invoice due on today, we can set the due date and we can set a percentage due on that monthly invoicing at a certain percentage of the total. So we'll show you how to set that up in just a minute. So if we want to enable progress invoicing, what we can actually do is we can come up here to the right in QuickBooks. My face might be covering it in the video, but there is a gear here. And if we click on the gear icon and we go over here, click on company settings, click on sales, and these are your settings. So then you can scroll down and look at where it says progress invoicing. Make sure that that is turned on. That basically allows you to invoice a percentage of the total in installments for your clients. So making it so that they can pay in installments. So just make sure that this is clicked on and then click save. So we'll go back to we're not entirely done creating that invoice. So we'll go back and we will convert our estimate into an invoice. So click create invoice, click total of all estimate lines if we want to invoice the entire amount, and click create invoice. So the cool thing about this is that QuickBooks keeps all the data from your previous estimates, so you don't have to fill in anything else. And make sure that your customer's email address is correct. Scroll down, and you can add any message that you would like. This carried over from the original estimate when we're converting into an invoice. And then you can add attachments like images of the work area if you'd like. Another thing that we can do is we can also customize this. So if you click on this, you can change the colors. We can print or preview the estimate. And here, if we'd like to see what it looks like, this is what it will look like. If we choose to customize it, we can change the colors. We have our terms, we have our date, we have our invoice number, due date. So when we are done, when everything looks good for our invoice, we can click save and send. This dialog will show up because it is linked to an estimate. So when we send it, it will update the estimate and convert it into an invoice. So this is the email. This is from to what we want to have it say. And another thing that is important is if we want to collect payment directly through QuickBooks, there's something called QuickBooks Payments. So you will want to make sure that QuickBooks, actually, let's close this out real quick. We'll actually want to make sure that this says on if you want to be able to collect Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Apple Pay, or American Express cards, or direct bank transfers into QuickBooks. We want to make sure that QuickBooks Payments is set up. So you'll go through this dialog here, click edit, and it will take you through setting up essentially the link between QuickBooks and your bank. But because that's set up, we will continue, and I'll show you what it looks like on the client side when they get the request to pay the invoice. So make sure QuickBooks Payments is set up if you'd like. If you don't have QuickBooks Payments set up, it will just send the invoice, and then your client can pay via wire or check. You can also send wiring instructions for them, but they'll just get basically a paper invoice or a PDF email, and they won't have this review and pay. It will just it will say something else. So yeah, we'll click send and close. And something interesting that you'll see that just happened here is our actual income has increased. Now this is because in this particular project we're using accrual accounting methods. So there's two different types of accounting methods. There's accrual and there's also cash basis. So with accrual, when we send an invoice, we are considering that as income. Now, with cash basis accounting, if we only record income when we actually receive the payment. So invoice, because we have an invoice, we haven't actually received the payment yet. This is accrual accounting, but a little side note. So we will check out the actual invoice and see what it looks like from the client's perspective. Okay, so this is what the invoice looks like from the client's perspective. And you'll notice it says due 4/29/2025. So on our invoice here, we have, remember we said we have net 30. So make sure that you set your terms, due on receipt, due net 15, net 30, or net 60 from when it was received. If you want them to pay immediately to start work, for instance, you should click due on receipt. So just make sure that that's set correctly. We'll just leave it at net 30 so they have 30 days to pay. But you can see this is what it looks like from the client's perspective. And when they click review and pay, because we have QuickBooks payments set up, it allows them to enter their debit or credit card information, and they can make a payment. They can also add their bank information with their routing number, account number, and account name. And then they can click that. They can also click up here to view the invoice. And yeah, just wanted to show you guys what it looks like from the client's perspective. So we're still in the project page here. You can see retaining wall installation project. And I'm going to show you how to create a change order using QuickBooks Online for this particular estimate invoice. So we'll click on view edit for the estimate, and we can come here and add another line item. So when we do this, there's two different ways we can create another estimate for any changes, or we can add another line item for our existing estimate. So materials for retaining wall, say that our client, for instance, wants to add another 15 feet. So they want it to be a 30-foot long retaining wall. So here we can add another line item. Let's say labor for installation of 15 additional feet of retaining wall. And we will, hopefully it doesn't erase my, yep. Okay, so, yep, we will set our rate here, and materials. Okay, and so you'll see here that we added 2 additional line items. Now we'll show you how QuickBooks can track this. So you'll see that the total has increased from 3,800 to 7,600. we'll click save and send. It's linked to others, that's okay. So this is what our client will see for the new additional work that was added. So they'll basically see the original estimate, but it will include not only 2 but 4 line items. So any additional line items that we added will show up here. Okay, so once we have added our change order, we can come over here to the original estimate and click on update status and change it to accepted by our client or whoever it might be on a particular date. So click OK. And now it is accepted. We can also, so once this is done, then the additional change order can get converted into an invoice. Again, we have progress invoicing. If we wanted to create do a percentage, we can also do it by line item. We'll just do remaining total of all lines. So they should owe another $3,800 on this particular invoice, and we'll click save and send. Okay, and send and close. So you'll see here that with the new change order, now we know that we've sent both of the invoices here, and both of the invoices are with the client. The ball is in their court. We have $7,600 worth of open invoices, and we can see here both of these here, the total balance for this in this particular project. We'll go back to project details, and something else that might be useful just for you to see how your change orders are working is to click on this tab called change log. So you'll see here we can go chronologically, and we have at 12:39 p.m. an estimate was created, and then we have another one that was created at 12:59 p.m. So we can even view the history of this if we'd like, and this gives us a lot more details about the specifics of our estimates here, estimates and how they are converted into invoices. So we'll go back to our projects. We'll click on this one here, and let's take a look at project reports. So something else under the projects reports tab that is useful is this button called project profitability. So let's click on that and see what we have here. So you'll see this is essentially a profit and loss statement. So we have income, expenses, and then our net income overall. So we didn't add any expenses for this project, but if we did, it would show up here. So yeah, let's go ahead and add an expense to our project. So click up here in the top right, add to project, expense. Who did you pay? Let's pay add new test vendor, checking account, payment date. We can add our payment method, reference number. We can pay via cash, check. We can have our check number here. And then we can add a category, description of the expense, and the amount of the expense as well. We can add a memo and we can click save and close. And then our expenses will show up in our project. We can also add expenses from receipts in our either here from a file if we drag and drop our for instance bills that we've received for this particular project, or we can also take pictures of receipts maybe from Lowe's or Home Depot, for instance, using the QuickBooks mobile app. So I have a video about how that works. Feel free to check out that video as well. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys how QuickBooks Projects works and how it can help you track different projects. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. My name's Alex. I'm a bookkeeper with American Bookkeeping Services. If you have any questions about bookkeeping or if you'd like to see any other videos, feel free to put your comments down below. I'd love to hear about your comments, ideas, suggestions, any difficulties that you have with bookkeeping. Again, I hope you have a great day. My name is Alex, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.